Hello, my name is Veronica Ripley, creator of Issliss, and I'm here to ask you to imagine a world where humans tried to invade a land of intelligent, dangerous monsters and failed. It's been 1,000 years, and human beings have been relegated to the fringes of society, subjugated, and forced to endure generational oppression at the hands of terrifying creatures, tyrannical governments, and a world that was not meant for us. I'm here to ask you, rise. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Issliss, Season 1. I'm very happy to be here. Today, we're going to discuss Issliss. We're going to meet the cast, and we're going to talk to one of the writers of the campaign here. I'm very, very excited. We at Fable Scraps have been working diligently for over a year now to bring Issliss to fruition. We have so much lore. We have thousands of years worth of lore. We have star charts and like bestiaries. We have custom dice. We have tons of stuff for you to sink your teeth into. So we're gonna get into all of it today in a first kind of introductory episode to Issliss. So welcome to Issliss. Hello, cast. Hi.
Hello.
We're gonna introduce the cast here. Let's start with Urban Bohemian.
Hi, yes, it's me, Urban Bohemian, aka Brian, and happy to be here. Done other RPG stuff, and Grimdark is new to me, so let's see where it goes.
Awesome. Oh, one more thing, chat. If somebody's voice doesn't sound as loud as it needs to, I need to know in chat. So when somebody sounds good, I just need ones in chat. And if somebody sounds like they need some attention from me, then I need twos in chat, all right? So next up we have Domestic Dan.
Hello, I'm Dan, Mr. Dan. I'm gonna be Leaf here, and yeah, I'm very excited for this really weird, interesting world.
Excellent. We're also joined today by Matroid Prime, one of the writers.
Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to share what we've been creating with everybody, and I hope that everyone digs it, because I certainly did.
Awesome. Cool. So, we scoured the internet for people who we thought could really embody the show and really bring something interesting and fun to the role-playing experience of this. Writing a TTRPG and coming up with rules and lore is really only part of the job here at Issliss. We also endeavor to create a show, an interesting and pretty unique show. Fable Scraps has a long history of doing some pretty interesting things visually. For our last show, Star Trek Adventures Loveless, we green screened the cast into a set. We'll be doing some of that here on Issliss as well for future episodes. And to that end, I want to talk to our role players about where you guys have been, like what you guys have done lately, what shows you've been on, what your kind of like style of role play is. We'll start with Urban Bohemian.
Let's see. Most recently, I played in the My Little Pony RPG,
Oh my God.
which is a thing that
That's
exists.
awesome.
It's using the Essence system, and it's very faithful to the show and the IP, but it's a very robust system. It's not just playing ponies. And before that, I was a member of Rivals of Waterdeep. We recently wrapped after 15 seasons. I have also, like, at conventions, played other systems. I'm on a Cyberpunk Independence podcast that also closed recently. It wrapped recently. And I've just done a lot of one-shots, I think mostly D&D, but other systems I will always, like, hop in for a one-shot because it's just fun. I don't know, it's fun to do this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Cool. What about you, Dan?
Well, I know the most recent thing I'm on right now happens to be with you as well, Teen.
That's right.
On Table Story, where I'm a lizard man in Pathfinder. But yeah, in terms of RPG stuff and tabletop specifically, I've been playing for so many years. I'm just kind of all over the place. I tend to stick to a lot of long form shows and plays because I get way too into character. And just love diving into interpersonal relationships and more the RP than the, like, game mechanics. Though I still love crunchy numbers, so.
Awesome. Yeah. Can I just say, by the way, that the show that I'm on with Domestic Dan is a Pathfinder show, and nobody knows as much about Pathfinder as Domestic Dan does. We'll be in the middle of the show, and I'll just look over at the Discord, and the Discord just has like paragraphs, reams of information about the exact thing that's going on. This one specific rule, and if you know anything about Pathfinder, it's like a very crunchy system sometimes. There's just a lot to it, so...
I'm just really good at Google. I don't know Pathfinder that well.
It's outstanding. I forgot to ask, Urban Bohemian, where can we find you off stream?
You can find me pretty much everywhere as Urban Bohemian on all the social medias, but mostly here on Twitch, same handle, and I stream a few days a week, mostly on weekend mornings.
Awesome. Okay, great. And Domestic Dan, where can we find you off Issliss?
I'm Domestic Dan everywhere. And yeah, I stream every day except Thursday, 2 p.m. outside of, like, show days where that always takes priority, and then I usually stream afterward, depending on how much makeup I have to take off.
It does seem like a lot of makeup. Also, in that show, nobody wears as much makeup as...
It's about an hour of makeup.
Oh my gosh.
Dan plays a lizard character. I forget what they're called in...
I think they're just lizard folk.
Lizard folk?
Yeah.
Well, he plays a lizard folk, and the makeup looks outstanding, by the way. It looks very, very good. It just also looks very time-consuming.
Yeah, it is.
I can't do cool makeup because I sweat too much.
You can't see the AC unit back here because it's been getting rough with the makeup.
Oh, wow, I bet. Yeah, it's that time of year. And Matt, where can we find you off stream?
The only real social media presence I have is my Twitter account, which is my name, Metroid Prime. You can find me there, rarely tweeting, but paying attention to the RPG world.
Nice. Perfect. All right, sweet. Well, I wanted to discuss your history, where you've come from, like what you've done writing-wise.
Sure. In terms of gaming, I've been running D&D and Pathfinder and Powered by the Apocalypse and Star Trek Adventures and all sorts of things out there for probably 20 years now. I mean, some of them not for 20 years because they haven't been around that long, but I have been writing campaigns in an unofficial capacity for friends and GMs out in the world for probably 4 or 5 years, but this is the first one that's ever wound up in front of a serious audience.
Awesome. And I just, as an aside, like as somebody who's read it, it's outstanding stuff.
Thank you.
I think you guys, the cast, are gonna be pretty impressed. Cool. All right, sweet. Well, I wanted to really quickly talk about the Kickstarter. We recently launched Issliss 1E on Kickstarter. It's very, very cool. We spent a long time coming up with enough content to really make an interesting kind of public push for a Kickstarter. And I think we have some really cool offerings. Obviously, we're going to release the core rulebook at the end of the year. We're going to release a physical version around this time next year, if all things go well. And we have some stretch goals too. What I really want to do is release a custom set of dice. Given that Issliss is a 3d6 system, I thought it would be really fun to utilize like a custom 3d6 dice system that looks really similar to the currency. The currency in Issliss is something that's really fun. We'll talk about it later, but we want to do currency tokens as well. So yeah, let's get up a picture of the Kickstarter here. Here it is. There we go. This is a brand new setup for me, so if it's a little bit fumbly, I'm sorry. There we are. This is the Issliss Kickstarter. You can get the link in chat. All you have to do is !Kickstarter. We released this 12 hours ago, and we've already got we're well on our way. We're past 10%. I'm very excited. Very cool stuff. As you can see, we have some excellent art here from Cowboy Punk. Just an incredible artist, one of the most creative people I know. We have some silhouettes of some of the sentient creatures of Issliss. If you act right now on the Kickstarter, you'll be able to acquire a limited number of launch posters or physical maps that are signed and numbered. This is that currency I was talking about. I think it would be really fun to do dice in the style of the currency. We have like artwork of these dice that we're going to use in the show, but I think it'd be neat to have physical ones. So those are the stretch goals. Big thanks to everybody who has supported the Kickstarter. Again, ! Kickstarter in chat for the link. And yeah, we have 59 days to go, and I'm pretty optimistic. So thanks, everybody. That's great. Another great thing that's happening today, given that this is a big day for all of us, is the release of the Quick Play Guide. So one of the elements of Issliss that we really, really tried very, very hard to bring to fruition was the idea that whilst the show is running, while we have a live show on Twitch, we have a really unique opportunity to provide a example of play of a brand new system to people who might be out there and want to play the game themselves. So to that end, we're releasing for free the Quick Play Guide. This is a heavily modified, really streamlined version of like a player's guide. So it's going to contain a little taste of some lore. It's going to have a smattering of rules that are important for a small campaign written by Matt. And it's going to have a little bit of artwork too. So this is going to be something that we're offering for free at fablescraps.com. All you have to do is sign up for the newsletter. If you haven't gotten the email yet, it's because it's the first day. Just give us a little while. But with the next newsletter, you guys will get the Quick Play Guide. And you can also acquire the Quick Play Guide through the Kickstarter. There's an important note about it here. Because this smallest tier here, the Gen Supporter, also allows you the opportunity to download the Quick Play Guide and a Vector's character sheet. But because you can get these things for free, we're offering as well a special thanks in the end credits of the show and a spot in the special thanks section of the core rulebook. So don't feel like you have to give $5 just for the digital Quick Play Guide. Those things are free on the website. This tier is mostly for getting a special thanks in the core rulebook. Cool. Really, really cool of everyone to support that Kickstarter. Yeah. Awesome. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about your guys' characters. You don't have to divulge anything that you think would be like fun to keep a secret, but I would love to meet your character just a little bit. So if you want to discuss like where your character's coming from or like what maybe a little bit of their backstory, it would be great. Whatever you're willing to divulge, you don't have to discuss it all.
I don't know, like how much of like the background and stuff can we talk about? I think I'm playing more of a social character. I almost always do. I am not good with like martial characters, and unlike Dan, I suck at math. So I don't want to have to figure out. I don't like figuring out damage. I don't do that. That's not good. But my character's name is Pawn, and it is drawn from like pawn as in a chess pawn, and they are a clerk in this world. They are basically the humans that have been designed to, they read, they write, they take care of the clerical work. And the way I've envisioned the character is like they are okay with their lot in life because it could be a lot worse. But because they work very closely with our overlords, they're not well liked. as anyone would be, because they're like, oh, in that situation, are you a collaborator or not? And there's all I love the way that the system has that we are almost made not to really trust each other, even though the humans rely on each other. There is this feel of like you do what you have to do to get by, but those bonds of trust really don't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a thought we had from day one, really, of designing this world. Was we wanted there to be like a really overarching antagonist, right? Like the sentient species of Issliss are really the big antagonist. But honestly, at a day-to-day level, like most of your friction and most of your conflict is going to come from other humans, collaborators. So there is built into the system actually a way to quantify trust among different populations, and the sycophant role is a really fun one because it gets a is it the sycophant? It gets a little debuff to interacting with humans.
Yes, like as a given, because you work with the sentient, like people don't trust you, and I kind of found that interesting. Like worse because you're on both sides of it. There's like an aspect of the humans don't trust you because of what you do, and then like the insectoid overlords don't trust you because you're human. So you're kind of caught in the middle of a bad situation. So like if my character has no friends, I get it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. A big component of Issliss is teamwork. Our dice system is developed specifically for this. The 3d6 system, if you look on a curve, like a distribution curve of where those numbers end up, you'll find that a 3d6 system is predominantly skewed towards the middle, meaning more often than not, you'll hit somewhere in like the 9, 10, 11, 12 numbers. Which alone will not be enough to complete most tasks. There are obviously ways to influence this, and built into the system is a really fun way to assist each other and help each other out and work together to solve problems, which aren't necessarily all outright conflict, given that some of the enemies in Issliss are well beyond means of hurting them, at least at first. So yeah, that's the persuasion type character is going to come in clutch for I think a lot of reasons. Domestic Dan, let's hear a little bit about your character.
Yeah, so I'm going the exact opposite. Brian, like it really is. I have Leaf, who is a hound, which is basically kind of your idea of like. They're not full, like, I'm big, go hit things, get all combat. They're more of like I almost kind of envision them as like a PI. They look around, they track, but it's not like always, oh, I'm tracking this squirrel going through the woods. It's more keeping an eye on what's going on around them. Probably looking out for people like Pawn. Maybe following them to figure out and like glean information. But specifically with Leaf, I wanted him to be a bit more. Well, Leaf, we'll probably go. I'm sure Nicotine will go a little bit more into like more the social dynamics of how humans are in this world. But he grew up mostly in the trees. He is a tapper, so they just like you do a lot of work up in the leaves of everything, hence his name. It also means he's terrible at talking with people and in social situations. I mean, because you're just up in the trees, there's no one around, so you don't get to practice that. So I'm kind of excited. A lot of the time, I tend to play a character that is a little more socially adept or can get through those situations. Even if they're like not charismatic, they're still competent enough. I kind of wanted Leaf to not be at all. And not be like abrasive, because I mean the whole thing is like we're playing together. Being abrasive isn't usually very conductive for like a table setting, but maybe not understanding social situations could be very interesting and fun, where it's just I don't get them because I'm not around humans or the sentient species at all. So it's going to be kind of like, yeah, you grab the person that has been raised by wolves, still can speak the language fine and understands rough societal things, but it's just like, here you go, you're in a city now. Like, I don't know. I grew up in the countryside, like out in the middle of the woods, literally, and now I live in Seattle. So I'm definitely not pulling off of my own. I was a well-water kid. Like, I couldn't see my neighbors because there was woods in between us. So, I'm definitely not pulling from personal experience in the past.
Awesome. So part of the character creation in Issliss revolves around two components. There are backgrounds and orders. Orders are analogous to other systems like classes. You can mix and match these two things to create a really unique character for you. Different backgrounds give you certain bonuses and debuffs, essentially. And different roles are suited for different things. Given Urban Bohemian is playing a more social character and took the sycophant role, the order of the sycophant, which is great. Domestic Dan chose a hound. The hound was something that I'm actually really excited about. I love the thought of when we created the hound, we wanted there to be a type of human role out there that is basically like a detective, like a tracker, like a PI. We thought it would be really fun if there were like human bounty hunters that were hired by Kasat. And that role was born from that. And so there's a lot of methods available to the hounds either early on or later on throughout the gameplay arc, where the hound can take prisoners with like minimal damage, so you can disarm folks or like make them I like to envision it as like hog tying them or like throwing a bola at them. Yeah. It's like a lasso.
Yeah, you get to be physically disarming instead of socially disarming. Like that's how it works.
I'll hog tie them, and then you can talk to them.
I don't think they're going to want to talk after you hog tie. Well, some people might.
Some might. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, the hound was a really fun character type. We looked at a lot of different types of gameplay while we were creating the orders. When we created those orders, we looked at what would be fun to play first, rather than trying to draw inspiration from other systems. We thought it would be really fun to as role players kind of think about like what the most fun thing to do as a role player would be. So that was kind of the impetus for like how we created the orders in Issliss, and they're really fun. They're really fun. So yeah. I think next I want to talk a little bit about the history of Issliss. This is just getting into the lore a little bit. But before I do, I just want to remind everybody that the Kickstarter is live. We have a super cool Kickstarter going on right now. You can click on the link in chat, !Kickstarter will get you the link. Check the remind me box to follow the project or consider backing it. We launched like 12 hours ago and already have like well over 10%. I'm super stoked. This is going to be great. You can get all kinds of cool things through the Kickstarter. There's obviously the quick play guide and a special thank you. There's the digital core rulebook at the end of the year. We have physical rewards as well. There's launch posters, maps of the region, and the top tier is a signed and numbered physical core rulebook, along with some dedicated signed posters. So yeah, I'm really excited. So check out the Kickstarter, !Kickstarter. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about the fact that Leaf is a hound, as a tapper hound. So when we were creating backgrounds for Issliss, we thought it would be really fun to come up with some mundane sounding things that were actually not mundane at all. So to that end, one of the backgrounds we created was the tapper, and it's like a tapper on Earth, right? You would tap a tree and get sap from it. But the trees in Issliss are a little bit more dangerous. Every tree in Issliss is extremely hard. They're extremely sharp. It's easy to cut yourself on them. There are a lot of creatures that make their homes in trees. There are a lot of predators that roam the woods that are just looking for humans. So being a tapper is a pretty hardcore background as well. So we thought that having just some backgrounds that sounded kind of mundane but were actually pretty hardcore would be really fun. So you'll get to absorb all of this information with the Issliss core rulebook, and some of this information with the quick play guide. So head over to the website, sign up for the newsletter, and get yourself a free copy of the quick play guide, or do so through the Kickstarter. One of the cool things about trees in Issliss, I don't want to get off on like too much of a tangent here, but we have a creature that makes its home in the trees called a flute worm. And it's called a flute worm because you'll be walking through the forest and start hearing like the like a bottle sound when you blow in like an empty bottle. And there are creatures that eat these flute worms that you don't necessarily want to run into. They're awful. One of the invasions of Issliss was obviously the invasion of man, right? The human invasion of Issliss about 1,000 years ago. But when humans invade anywhere, we tend to bring with us a lot of other things. In Issliss, there's not a whole lot that can survive out in the wild, but humans brought rabbits, and rabbits are uniquely suited to the world of Issliss because they can outbreed being eaten. So there's an invasive species that's not humans, and it's rabbits. So you'll end up finding bunnies in a lot of places. Isn't that fun?
So cute. So sweet.
Yeah, we brought an invasive, instead of us being the invasive species, we ended up being prey, and our invasive species really thrived. That's great. That's fantastic for us.
That's very human, admittedly. We made things worse for ourselves and maybe a little bit of the other things, but okay.
Yeah, rabbits are an invasive species to Issliss, which I thought was a really nice touch. There's a component to Issliss that is something that we'll divulge a lot more in the core rulebook. But to give a really brief overview, there's a type of element that's in a certain strata of Earth, of the ground. It's called air crystal. An air crystal is this type of element that vibrates at such a fast frequency, it's able to meld flesh together or separate it. And the creatures that are exposed to this air crystal tend to change in unexpected ways. So the rabbits you'll encounter, being like burrowing animals, over the course of the last 1,000 years, have begun to change. There are a wide variety of rabbits you'll encounter that aren't very cute at all. So that's something that I thought was a really good touch. Yeah, we don't yet have like a pet system yet.
I'm just saying, like, you know, I will lean fully into the grimdark sci-fi future of this, and therefore, instead of my pets needing to be cute, cuddly animals, they can be little horrifying monstrosities on four legs. It's fine.
I support this entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to explore that a little bit in the system. The Eldritch horror version of Watership Down. That's right. If you're watching this on on YouTube or any other website, or if you're listening to the podcast, just know that this show happens live every Friday at noon Pacific on twitch.tv/FableScraps. You can also find the link to this show through the website at fablescraps.com. Yeah, speaking of the system, the 3D6 system that we mentioned is really unique for a lot of reasons, but the one of the coolest components is that the character sheet is so like advanced. There's so many like elements to the character sheet that we thought it would be really fun to build out a live working character sheet that just lives online. And so to that end, we have a really cool dice roller. I want to demonstrate the dice roller because I think it's great. We'll be able to roll live, and you'll be able to see the results of the dice here. These dice are something we want to offer for as a stretch goal on Kickstarter. So head over to the Kickstarter if you want to someday see physical versions of these dice. They're beautiful. Colt did an incredible job designing the dice and also designing this ridiculous online dice roller. Just absolutely cool. I've personally never seen anything like this. So I mean, not built this way, right? Like we've all seen like Roll20 and stuff, but this is not anything like that. It feels scrappy. It feels a little scrappy, and I feel like that fits very well in the world of Issliss. You know what I mean?
A hand-carved sort of thing, like just
really
made it out of random bone we found.
Yeah,
Like
It really
stone.
does feel like something that that the humans would have, being given no luxury, no culture, no anything, that we would have basically started making ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Is it all right if I share one of your character sheets?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I've got one of these up right now. One moment. I just want to...
Just making sure that, you know, I didn't type like, it didn't save something like Brian is smelly in my notes or something like that.
Oh, mine is all butts. Mine just says
Okay.
all
All
butts.
right. That's probably safe. That's probably better than you.
You're fine.
I'm really proud of the character sheet design for Issliss. When we initially started developing the character sheet, we came at it from an angle of this is a dossier. Like we wanted a dossier that the Cassat specifically would keep on human constituents, right? This is a method of data collection and surveillance on behalf of the Cassat, you know, towards humans. And it's called vectors because they see humans as like a little vector for disease. It's also called vectors. They don't have like the greatest opinion of you guys.
I don't remember you saying that. Oh, God.
That was definitely not mentioned. I thought it was
Yeah.
for trouble or problems. Disease did not come up on the call.
So the way that we design the character sheet is going to be reminiscent of a dossier that the Cassat have kept on humans. This is an example of such a character sheet. You'll notice on this live version we have we have spaces for name, order, background, current level. There's descriptions of characters. We have a little space for notes, but we also have vectors. Vectors are our Issliss way of determining your character's like stats, basically. We have vigor, endurance, cunning, temperament, observation, and reflex. Additionally, we have a really unique armor system. Armor pieces it's essentially a pool of armor that you have. You're allowed a lot of flexibility in Issliss, and one of the ways that we're really flexible is by allowing players to just decide like what pieces of armor they're finding. And each piece of armor counts towards your armor score, basically. So you're allowed to roleplay it however you want. Which is another little nugget from being a role player and thinking it would be really cool, you know, to have like a certain thing, but only being given by the DM like one other thing. You know what I mean? We have a really robust stress system as well. Stress in Issliss is going to play a pretty big role. The way that we handle stress is varied and vast. Some characters even rely on having a high stress level to succeed. We have a huge list of substances, consumables, illnesses, parasites that will affect stress. We also have methods of reducing it. Certain actions, certain events can trigger more stress. At a certain level, it starts to reduce your vectors. And at the maximum amount, you become unconscious. We have a huge list of skills and proficiencies. These stats are fed from your vectors. They also will be kind of the one of the main methods for you to directly interact with the world. Checks for things like persuasion to humans versus persuasion towards Kasat, and Tisk and Lacertians. We have weapon skills like might, heavy weapons, light weapons, ranged weapons, that kind of thing. One really interesting like design element that we had with Issliss was that we really wanted players to be able to do actions that their characters might not feel comfortable with. So a character who is not trained in weapons, for instance, will still be allowed to wield one just at a cost. And that cost will either be stress or a much more difficult roll. But you'll still be able to wield it, like technically, you just might not be very good at it. And the risk of critically failing is much greater. And when you critically fail in Issliss, something drastic happens. You're allowed to pick exactly what it is. And it's sort of up to the DM discretion what it is. But think of critically failing in Issliss as something character changing, like character altering. Like you'll end up with like missing an eye or like a limb or something. Like your crossbow is gonna explode, right? Something to that effect. Not to worry though, because the world of Issliss is full of interesting prosthetics. One of the ways that humans interact with this world is through what essentially amounts to accessible design, given that humans aren't really capable of like traversing a lot of areas in the Plateland specifically. Things like climbing gear and special prosthetics in order to like get around and move through this world is pretty common, especially among the more refined humans out there, the more well-behaved humans.
What are you saying?
The level of technology of Issliss is roughly analogous to like a steampunk world. So the prosthetics and some of the weaponry and some of the methods of injections, things like that, will be powered through something we're calling effluvium cores. You'll be able to go to the steamworks in any major city and refill your canisters, but it is finite. So you'll have to decide when and where to use it. I love this. This character sheet is it's got a lot going for it, and I'm really, really proud of the way that it's turned out. We've also got space for, like we talked about, substances and consumables. Vitriols, we're calling poisons vitriols. Elixirs, we have elixirs for health. things like that. The components that you'll be able to use to craft things like this in Issliss are pretty wild, and it might take some effort to acquire some of them. The exotic materials that you'll end up using are sometimes extraordinarily toxic too, so you might incur some level of stress collecting them. We also have some pretty interesting illnesses and parasites. Certain creatures in Issliss are like perfectly fine with parasites, but some parasites are just uniquely suited to affect humans in awful ways. We have a huge list of parasites and illnesses, and some of them, all of them hurt you in some way, but some of them can, in a really roundabout way, help you out. There are certain illnesses and parasites that might make it easier for you to connect with other humans. There are certain illnesses and parasites that might cause you to sprout spines all over your body, really uncomfortable, like feather-like spines out of your skin, and make it difficult for people to grab you.
Yay? Yay, I guess I want to say to that. I mean, pros and cons, you know.
Yeah.
We've also got a variety of abilities that humans can choose when you make a character. Abilities are really fun. You gain some of them through leveling up. You also gain some of them just to start. Some of them you get from backgrounds like Gregarious here. Fellow Human is one, non-threatening, call-out Codebreaker. All of these have definitions in the core rulebook, and some of them may be available in the quick play guide. But yeah, we have tons of these abilities. It's wild. We have an inventory system, carry weight, armor pieces owned. This is your scratch pad for all the stuff you're going to be carrying around. We also have crafting supplies. There's a really robust crafting system in Issliss, as well as a bartering system that I think is really fun. A lot of the items you'll find in Issliss are things that have had to be cobbled together, right? Lots of stuff isn't necessarily like manufactured just for humans, you know? So I would venture to guess to say that like most of the things you'll interact with in your campaign will be things that humans have kind of just had to cobble together. The scrappy can-do attitude is like kind of a really unique feature of the humans just in general. So we wanted to bring that to Issliss in a fun, like interactable way. How do you do, fellow humans? Really quick, I want to give a big thank you to Urban Bohemian, Domestic Dan, and Matchwood Prime. We're gonna just really quickly. I want to go around to Urban Bohemian and get your like where people can find you and last final words. We're gonna break for an intermission really quickly. We're gonna come right back with Matchwood Prime and myself. We're gonna talk in depth about the history and lore of Issliss. So don't go anywhere. Urban Bohemian, where can people find you?
You can find me as Urban Bohemian. I love having the name right down there because I don't have to remember how to spell it. And I'm here on Twitch. I'll be streaming tomorrow, but I stream Saturdays, Sundays, and Tuesdays. And otherwise, you can catch me on whichever social media platform is the most viable right now, usually making a lot of posts about comic books, Murder, She Wrote, disco, and brunch.
Oh, awesome. Domestic Dan.
Sorry, just Murder, She Wrote. That was nice. It's like I already follow you and enjoy that content. Yes, you can find me at Domestic Dan. Also below me, which I didn't even realize was, directly below me. I just saw it there and didn't pay much attention to that. 2 p.m. Pacific every day except Thursday, and then Mondays for Gatewalkers, which I'm also with Nicotine for that. That's over on Table Story. But I'm so excited for this. It's just... If you like food content and everything else, I apparently can cook in this game. Since I have to live on trees anyway, I need to be able to feed myself. So cook in and out of game.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's awesome. What a good little tie-in. Yeah, cooking's actually a big part of this game, given that you incur stress in so many fun and interesting ways that eating food is going to be pretty important to keep your stress down. Cool.
Like real life.
Big thanks to Urban Bohemian, Domestic Dan for being here. We have another third cast member not here this week. Chelsea Bites will be here next week for our first role play episode of Issliss. So stay tuned. We're going to be right back. We're just taking a really quick intermission, and yeah, we'll see everybody in about 5 minutes. See if I can do this. Okay, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Hold the phones here.
I had it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Issliss. My name is Veronica Ripley. I'm the creator of Issliss, and joining me today is Matroid Prime. Matt is one of the authors, the sort of lead author of the campaigns that are going to be coming included with Issliss and the campaign for the show. So, hi, Matt.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm nervous and excited to be here.
Yeah.
I'm used to my words being presented just sight unseen, so talking about them actively is a new thing for me, but I'm enjoying it.
Oh, good. Nice. I wanted to talk really quickly about the Kickstarter. I want to give a big thank you to everybody who has been supportive of the Kickstarter. We launched like 13 hours ago, and we're already like well over 10%, so I'm very excited. Chat, if you want to get involved in the Kickstarter, it's really easy to do. ! Kickstarter will get you a link. You can also go to fablescraps.com and just click Kickstarter. You can either check Remind Me here, this box just below the green box, or you can back the project if you are really, really cool. There's a ton of different reward tiers. You'll be able to get the quick play guide in addition to a special thank you spot in the core rulebook when it launches. There's some really cool artwork here. We're gonna talk about the artwork in a minute. But here at the Kickstarter, you can also get a limited number of signed and numbered maps and posters, launch posters. So there are only 50 of these. There's 50 of the launch posters that are numbered and 50 of the maps that are numbered. So those are gonna go. Be sure to get in quick. We have a stretch goal for these really cool dice that are modeled after the currency in Issliss, which is something that we took a lot of pride in when we created this currency. I'm very excited to discuss it. We're going to talk about it in a minute, but these are stretch goals. If the Kickstarter gets funded over what we're asking for, then we're going to explore having these physically made. So yeah. Head over to the Kickstarter if you'd like to support it. Again, big thank you to everybody who has supported it so far. Click on Kickstarter in chat, on the link in chat, or just go to fablescraps.com and click Kickstarter. Cool. I think I kind of really want to talk about the lore really quickly, if that's okay.
Let's do it.
All right. So 1,000 years ago, the human invasion of Issliss took place, but it's not the start. It's not the beginning of the story. The history of Issliss takes place in aeons. Aeons are the overarching method of like a delineated space and time. Before the first aeon, not much is known. The ancient Iss left only sparse records, but various tribes would become hives. The first Aeon saw the birth of the royal plate of Kassat and the first Kassat queen. Legend says it was in this Aeon that the greatest threat of the land, a predator called the Taika, was eradicated. The Tisk religion was laid out and codified officially, eventually leading to the first holy realm of Issliss, the seat of the Tisk government and religion. I want to talk about the Kassat and the Tisk really briefly. I have some images that we're going to go through because it'd be criminal not to show these. They're beautiful. We're going to take a look at this slideshow really quick.
It's like a sneak preview for the audience, but not the players. It's perfect.
Yeah, totally. This is the currency. We talked about the currency a little bit. This is what it looks like in Issliss. You'll notice that they've got some really pretty geometric designs along with a hole straight through the center of them, and they're different sizes. This is important because the Kassat are the ones who minted this currency, and the Kassat are enchanted by intricate geometric designs. there's actually an item in game called a fascinator, which is a device that deploys out of a character's back and like fits like almost like a helmet or like a hat around their head. That's just like really intricate geometric designs to like dazzle a cassette. But I love that it's called a fascinator because it's like a hat. The currency in Issliss is something that's heavily regulated by the government. There's a hole straight through the center of these so that you can string a strip of fabric or leather through them. That way you can wear them on the outside of your body. All currency in the Platelands is to be worn visually at all times, so that any checkpoint you may go through can easily see like how much currency you have on you. And the denominations are thus: there's they call them the gent or the black gent here. There's a saint, a silver saint, and a tau saint of a different type of metal here. For the Kickstarter, we want to create like physical versions of these because I think they'd be really fun as tokens. But yeah, they are minted in the Platelands, and humans mine for these precious metals, and you have to wear them in wallets that are basically strings on the outside of your person. Some characters will be able to have an easier time smuggling things. So some characters, have that ability to smuggle stuff, and maybe it's a little easier for them to do so. So yeah. Interesting stuff. We have, oops. This is a bloat crab. This is a creature that's going to come up pretty quickly in the campaign.
It is, in fact.
Yeah. Horrible cave dwelling crabs. What's the inside of the bloat crab, Matt? Have we discussed what's inside of it?
Colt and I have talked about options for when people kill them, but we haven't settled on anything yet. The plan is that because they're invertebrates or crustaceans, that's the word, because they're those things that have an exoskeleton. The plan is, they're not easy to take out, obviously, because they're not quite horse-sized and can crawl and can like dig through rock. And so they're not something that a person would just walk up to and, oh, well, I'm going to hunt this for dinner. But
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff. The bloat crabs that the PCs are going to run into, one will be pregnant. That's that big yellow thing on its back is an egg sac.
Egg sacs.
And so there's, as long as you're cool with, taking out a mom, there's potential resources in it for them.
Oh, okay. Interesting. One of the hallmarks of this campaign, by the way, is going to be moral dilemmas. One of my favorite parts of Star Trek Adventures Loveless, Fable Scraps, which we did last year, was when I was writing the episodes for that. The thing I tried to do the most was introduce moral dilemmas, and so I find it really fun to see like what the cast does with a moral dilemma. So I love that element, and Issliss is going to have that in spades. So that's going to be a fun little element to the show. We have a salt neck boar. This is a large boar, maybe like the size of, what would you say, Matt? Like the size of larger than an earth boar, basically, but smaller than like a crocodile, maybe.
Yeah, that's about good for length. It's a little taller than that because it's got actual legs, but
yeah.
It's very similar in size to a full-on crocodile. Yeah, these
are pretty prevalent in the Platelands, especially at higher elevations. They like to hide near streams and brooks, and eat whatever they can come across. Sometimes that's roots and vegetables, and sometimes it's corpses. So these guys are nature's cleanup crew. We've got a chantabird. these are fun. These are really common in the Razmire. There's a region in the Platelands called the Razmire, which is like a temperate swamp. These guys are really long and spindly, and they have some of the sharpest beaks that the players can encounter in the wild. So they're really valuable for crafting. They're also really pokey, so it might be difficult to get your hands on.
Yeah, as I recall, that beak is long, sharp, and used for stabbing.
Yeah,
so.
It's expressly used for stabbing, and it's very, very good at it. So, which is why it's so useful.
And also, it's a weird like snake bird.
Yeah.
I will say, Chantabirds are probably one of my favorites for how like creepy and alien Issliss is.
Yeah, one of the big design philosophies we had with Issliss was that we didn't want to bring a sense of normalcy and comfort to this world. This is a world that is not made for humans, so everything the players encounter can be familiar, but not in a Earth way. Like, it can be an equivalent to something, but it can't be the same. So when we created the creatures of Issliss, we specifically sought out to create versions of them that maybe might seem familiar in small ways, but are absolutely anything but.
I know that early on we took a lot of inspiration from like real creatures that had really unique either defense mechanisms or ways of protecting themselves.
That's right.
And took all of those things and we're like, okay, well, how can we make this even worse? and then also make it even worse and target it at humans, because humans are the invasive species of Issliss. All these things were supposed to be there, and now humans are there dealing with all of this stuff that isn't really built for them. And so a lot of the animals appeal to me from a game master standpoint, because the encounters are not about combating them, they're about surviving them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another design philosophy we had with Issliss, where outright combat isn't discouraged, but it's sometimes, most of the time, maybe not the best way to go about solving a conflict.
It's definitely an option, and it's a good one in some cases, but there's a lot of stuff in this game that if you try to go toe-to-toe with it, it will turn you inside out and wear you for a hat, and that's not what we want anyone to do.
The philosophy behind that was that we really wanted players as humans to feel vulnerable. Like, we wanted humans to experience a sense of vulnerability. Like, humans are capable of some incredible things in Issliss, but being an apex predator is not necessarily one of them. So yeah, combat is absolutely a thing in Issliss, and it is fast-paced, and it is dire. And there are always options to run away, mostly. Because surely there will be players who find themselves, in a situation that they didn't intend on. So yeah, the combat's fun. We have a really robust combat system, and the 3d6 dice system, it lends itself really well to fast-paced combat. So those hours that you've spent at other game tables waiting for everybody to take their turn in combat, that's not a thing in Issliss. They happen really, really quick and really, really brutally. So working together is a big component of this game. You won't really be able to do a whole lot on your own as a human, as a lowly human. You can't really do a whole lot by yourself. That's why teamwork is such a big deal. And it's why we have introduced a system built into the dice system, built into vectors. There's a way to engage with something we're calling synergy. It's a method that players can use to help each other out. You can learn more about that in the core rulebook. The next thing I want to talk about here is the map. The map of Jalazra. This is a beautiful map. Colt did all the assets for it. Just outstanding stuff. Colt also did an incredible job with the with the font here. Absolutely outstanding. But this is a map of where the players will be exploring if they choose to do so. There are a ton of different biomes here that are gonna lead to like a really dynamic gameplay It's really flexible. One of the things we wanted with Issliss was to be just as flexible as possible, because not everybody wants to run a game the exact same way. Like maybe players want to play a little sneakier. Maybe players want to play, a little bit more heavy hitting. Maybe players want to play like more persuasive characters. But aside from that aspect of it, maybe players also want to explore a more like frozen type of expanse. Maybe they want to be more like in a swamp, or like maybe they want to do more stories that are located in like rocky mountains or woods. And so to that end, the starting area, basically the Platelands here in Issliss is varied drastically sometimes. So we have here the capital city of Shazal. This is where the queen sits in her chambers deep below the surface. Yeah, it's a beautiful colorblind friendly map. That's right. I'm a little colorblind, and when we developed the color palette, Colt specifically chose colors that I could see, so which is why it ended up looking gorgeous. So yeah, you're welcome.
Accessible and beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. The queen sits in her chambers deep below Shazal, in a kind of a wooded, more lowland area with a lot of water and quick access to farmland just outside in kind of a valley, a really fertile valley. One aspect of the Platelands of Jalazra is that it's the dominion of the royal plate of the Kasat. So the monarchy controls everything here, and the monarchy being the queen, the royal queen. In order to enact her will, the queen had her workers create massive spires called queen songs, and these great spires are dotted around the landscape here. You'll see one here is in Darkacre. There's one in Woodhold, in Lemeret, and so on. And these spires basically act as high tension lines. Think of like when you were a kid and you got like a tin can or something and like strung a tin can between two spots, except the tin can is not a tin can. It's a monstrous spider, and the line is extremely high tensile and kills birds all the time. Just slices them right in half. They call it the queen song because you can hear a high-pitched kind of sound as you're walking under it. In fact, we have a region here called the Songwood because of that, because there's a high tension line that goes straight over it for the queen song.
But to borrow a metaphor, they're like telegraphs for the Kasat.
That's right, basically like telegraphs. The Kasat government, the royal plate, operates them, so you can rest assured that any communication over the queen song is going to be monitored for good moral quality. So we have these lowlands here, these lowland like wooded forest areas and rivers. Something that's kind of familiar and friendly to a lot of players who've maybe played other games. We have some really rocky mountainous regions too. We have Saltneck Pass, which is full of Saltneck boar. We have Coward's Pass here, which is part of the lore for Issliss is that there were some human rebellions after humans were subjugated. There were a few rebellions, and one of them was here in Arcadia Farms. Baldwin's Folly Baldwin was one of the human rebels who fell to the Kasat as they were retreating through Coward's Pass. His lieutenant Reed made a last stand here. When the human rebellion was quashed, the humans were forced to dig a massive aqueduct from this lake here to Arcadia Farms to keep that productive. There's cities. All the major cities of Issliss are the ones mostly connected with this queen song, the Great Spires. And all the cities have a really distinct feel, right? Shazal is the capital city, and therefore it's like the most traditional Kasat city. There's spires and it's really difficult for humans to get around. A lot of it is underground. Some of it is in, up way up high. The Kasat are like a vertically minded species, so they don't have the same limitations that humans do in terms of like getting around, right? Chazarut is a huge industrial city. They have the ability to wield, like the hydropower from both of these rivers here, and so they produce a ton of waste. There's another small human settlement called Spicewater to reflect that. Tausha Bay is like the relaxation city. It's like the tourist city for wealthy Kasat who want to get away from the hustle and bustle of Shazal. They come to vacation in Tausha Bay, but some of the Kasat vacation activities are things that you might not necessarily want to attend as a human. We have Lemeret, which is a research, mostly like a research-focused town. There's a college here, research facilities. A lot of weird things happen in Lemeret. Most of the brand new technologies that are created in the Platelands come from Lemeret, and it's a huge source of knowledge for the region. So Lemeret is really important. We have the city of Joan here. This is a logging and transportation city. So there's the river hands, the people who handle floating logs through the rivers and navigating these passageways, mostly come from Joan. Last Husk is really fun. Last Husk is another major city in the Platelands. Every single one of these cities is is home to a different variety of Kasat. The Kasat are not a monolith. There are lots of different types of Kasat out there. The Royal Plate and like Royal Guards and stuff are home, use Shazal as their home. But the rest of these cities, Chazarut, Lemeret, Tausha Bay, Joan, Last Husk, like these cities are home to different unique varieties of Kasat. These are hives, swarms of Kasat that were similarly subjugated long before humans invaded Issliss by the Royal Plate. They're forced every year to provide a certain number of eggs as tribute to the Royal Plate in exchange for like the protection and the access to human labor and access to human access to humans, access to the Queen Song. So you'll find a very different feel, not just in the type of city that you're going to, but also the variety of Kasat that you'll meet there. They're all pretty different. Each one of these contains their own, like their own sort of like minor queen, like a duchess, who's responsible for providing those eggs. Last Husk is really fun because the Kasat that come from Last Husk are, this is a region that's elevated quite a bit. It's like halfway up this mountain range, the Dursta Mountains. So it's a little bit colder. And they aren't quite as fast, but they're beefy. Like they're huge, big, beefy Kasat. They're hairy. And in the lore, a few hundred years ago, the Kasat used to, or a few hundred years before the invasion of Issliss by man, the Kasat used to go through the Dursta Mountain Pass up here into the Tarkatlas Forest and conduct raids on the Tisk. And bring Tisk back and have just like a supply of food for a while, The Tisk are obviously kind of bitter about that. Last Husk is one of the places where they would store those bodies for later because it's a little colder and they can last for a little bit longer. So Last Husk is really fun. This region is home to a couple of different places. There's like a beach side, we've got mountain ranges, we've got high, kind of elevated, more colder mountain ranges up here. We have like rockier lowland mountain ranges down here. We've got this like sand dune type of region over here. We've also got the Razmire. The Razmire is a big feature of Issliss, of Jalazra, of the Platelands. this is a massive swamp, home to a huge amount of biodiversity and tons of really interesting and fun creatures that the players can interact with. Some of them are really like valuable in terms of resources, and some of them are extremely dangerous. So it's going to be really fun to see the players go through the Razmire for sure. What else? This is a map that has taken form over the course of like a year. We're still going through and writing more lore for it, but we have pages and pages and pages of lore for each one of these cities, histories, and yeah, we're going to ship the core rulebook with little scenarios in each of them. So that's going to be really fun. The region is called Jalazra. It's also known as the Platelands because the Royal Plate controls it. Yeah, large boys up here in Last Husk. Can you tightrope on them? I assume you mean on the Queen song. No, if you tried, it would slice you entirely in half. They're high tensile, super thin, extremely sharp, and vibrate at such a high frequency as to completely slice anything in half. You'll find just sliced in half birds under them sometimes, who maybe forget and like can't, forget that they can't land on them.
But hey, food.
But hey, free food. It's like roadkill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, already done for you and didn't involve a car. So it's great.
Off the map here, to the north, you can find a more colder region, like the northern region. Kasat are a type of arthropod, and the way that their blood system works is that they have this kind of hydraulic system, basically, like an organic hydraulic system to move their limbs. But the fluid inside of a Kasat is really susceptible to freezing, so they can't really get further north without a special elixir that they raise here in Arcadia Farms. There's a type of crop here that contributes to you use it to create sorbahol. It's an elixir that has a little bit of sugar alcohol in it, and it keeps the Kasat blood from freezing when they go into colder temperatures. So farmlands are very important, and the human labor that supplies the sorbahol is very tightly regulated. To the south, we have the southern Platelands. The Kasat do claim dominion over the south, but the actual level of control from the Royal Plate is contested. There are three major factions in Issliss. The Kasat are obviously the one we're talking about the most right now, but there also exists the Tisk and the Lacertians. There's a war going on down south. Not necessarily a war, it's skirmishes, really. They don't want to have an all-out war, but
there are border disagreements.
There are border
south.
disputes. That's right. There are border disputes with the Lacertians, and humans are seen in the Platelands as being particularly bloodthirsty. So humans are often conscripted to fight in these wars, but humans aren't given any kind of renderings or pictures of the Lacertians before they go, because it's felt that if the humans saw what they looked like, they wouldn't want to go fight. So we won't be offering images of the Lacertians before the core rulebook launches, just to keep that mystery alive. Because you're a human. What do you need to look at them for? Just go fight them.
If they don't look human and they don't look Kasat, then you attack them.
Yeah, it's antifreeze and spider juice. That's right, sorbahol. Do the arthropods keep their heart in their abdomen or their legs? We'll talk about the biology of a Kasat in game. This is an image of a Kasat with some clothing on. The Kasat are extremely fond of geometric designs. So we have some really well designed, intricate clothing options here for them. There's also a lot of dangly little spindly threads. A lot of the threads that you'll find in the Platelands are extremely unique. The Kasat are create some of the finest most exotic filaments in the entire continent for obvious reasons. And so there's a whole industry of what are called filamenteers, people who in one form or another are tasked with crafting items with filaments. Sometimes filaments are just there to look pretty, and sometimes filaments are there to literally cut someone in half. So there are some really cool fabrics in Issliss. We'll divulge a lot more with the core rulebook, but rest assured, the Platelands are going to be home to some really interesting fabrics. Here's an image of the last husk cassette.
Look at that furry spider.
Look at how cool that. Look, they've got like a hairstyle even. I adore Last Husk. It's so good. I love these guys.
They're pretty amazing, I won't lie.
We drew a lot of inspiration from when we were designing like cassette, the different varieties of cassette. We're trying to not necessarily draw from the physical aspects of real life spiders. We're really going for more of like their function and what they do best, and trying to see how Issliss could make that a little bit better. You know what I mean? So we looked
also
at,
make it sentient.
Yeah, and sentient. So we when we were designing these, we're like, okay, well, they have to have fur on them, kind of like a tarantula, but they're also they live underground a lot, so maybe they're more like trapdoor spiders, and so we ended up just coming up with this. Colt has done an outstanding job rendering these insane designs.
Yeah, they are incredible, and they definitely are very evocative of what we were after. So Colt just being like, "Oh, here, spiders," and we're like, "Oh, you read our mind, great, fantastic."
Colt, yeah, I have that sensation all the time that Colt can read my mind.
Yeah.
Some really beautiful clothing here, some great clothes. We've got another variety of cassette here with a headdress. Really interesting type of cassette. I love, by the way, the veil here. This is another example of the exotic fabrics and filaments in Issliss. Some of them will be able to do some really interesting things to maybe help the party, like bending and refracting light. So that's going to be something really fun to discover as you play the game. And this actually showcases a really interesting feature of the cassette. Their forelimbs are actually separated. These are digits, so they have what amount to hands, but they can fold them so close together that they can be basically just limbs like their other limbs. I love these danglies too. These are very, very good.
I love this one, but it is probably the most horrifying of the cassette that we have.
Oh,
because it looks like a Black Widow, unlike the rest of them, and so it's just creepy.
Here's an example of a human. This is a I want to say this is an expert.
It looks like
or a scholar. This might be a scholar.
They do have books.
They do have book. Yeah, they do have book. Experts are more of like the tinkerers. This is probably a scholar. This is a common style outfit, so you'll find a lot of people wearing these outfits in the Platelands. A lot of the clothing and fashion in the Platelands is derived from the fact that the cassette were really the ones, in charge. So there's going to be a lot of reliance on like flowy kind of fabrics. A lot of like a lesser reliance on buttons. There's going to be a lot more sashes and a lot more like fabric to clothing here. Here's this might be a sycophant, given that they're wearing like really nice clothing. I see some expensive stuff. They got a cape here, maybe a little bit of armor. This is probably a
They've
sycophant.
got geometry on the tunic. I feel like they're very, very likely sycophants.
Oh,
because that's cassette. That's cassette style right there.
Yeah, 100%. This is something that would be attractive to a cassette. They probably work in a cassette dwelling. This is an expert.
That person was probably a collaborator.
Oh yeah, this person's
This person is
100% a collaborator. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an expert. You can see here a great example of the wallet as well. It's just a string that you keep money on the outside of your person so that the checkpoint can see you. This is another example of prosthetics too. There are a ton of prosthetics in Issliss. This is a great example of one of them. It's really easy to lose a limb here. There's a lot of sharp things, so prosthetics are pretty important.
Also, a lot of the prosthetics in are sort of like lent out by the Cassat as to like augment workers.
That's right.
Like trusted workers will be able to like replace their arm with like a drill if they're a miner, and so they can go and like do all that without having to have tools or anything like that. They just have to give up a hand. No big deal.
That's right. There's actually, as a design philosophy for Issliss, when we were creating this idea that we wanted a lot of prosthetics in Issliss, we specifically wanted humans to be able to inhabit some of the aspects of qualities they might be lacking as mere humans, right? Given that humans aren't very like capable, you know, like we have soft little hands and not very sharp teeth, and we're pretty weak compared to a lot of the creatures in Issliss. So prosthetics are one way that humans find accessibility to interact with this world, and sometimes some really compelling ways. Like Matt was talking about how certain workers are afforded special augmentations. Sometimes
although
once they receive
those augmentations, then they're assumed to be a collaborator from their friends and they're poorly. But you know,
yeah, that's right. Here's an example of a petty outfit. You see a lot of like smudges and dirt and holes and stuff. This is probably a prowler. This is probably a prowler. But yeah, you'll see another example of like there's not really any buttons. It's just like very oh my god, hang on. This is the image I'm talking about. You'll see like a lot of examples of clothing here, just like without buttons, or like that are very flowy, because that's just the style of clothing in the Platelands. It's very fabric oriented.
And what a Cassat need with buttons anyway? They got those weird little two fingers.
Yeah, that's right. Humans rely on clothes for warmth, but Cassat just have them to look pretty.
Yeah, it's a status thing.
It's a status thing. And it's sort of weird that humans get to have a status thing, but maybe none of it's going to be as nice as the Cassat stuff, so.
Right, and that's why there's, like, petty and common clothing. Like, a lot of clothing in the game is based off of background, so, like, if you're just, like, a poor worker, you probably have petty clothes, but if you're a sycophant, you probably have sweet Cassat-made clothes, and it's all sort of to highlight the differences that is put in just by your existence.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome. Here's an image of all of them together. This is like a cell. We're calling the party in Issliss a cell, to kind of be a little bit more reminiscent of like a little band of ne'er-do-wells.
Like a rebel cell.
Like a rebel cell. That's right. So this is a great example of a cell. Looks really well diversified too. We have a sycophant. We got an expert, a scholar. We've got a prowler. Very, very cool. Here's a great little close-up of Domestic Dan's character. Here's Chelsea Bites. We didn't get to see Chelsea Bites today, but Chelsea's character, Pippet, is a biologist. The biologist is something that's really fun. I'm a little bummed we haven't talked about it yet. The biologist is the order of the biologist is a type of character class, essentially, in Issliss, that is specialized in elixirs and vitriols and chemicals, basically. They are afforded some level of use with prosthetics in order to further this biology class, right? There's certain types of injectables and certain methods of transferring these elixirs and vitriols that are really unique and really, really fun to the biologists. So biologists are pretty easy to spot in Issliss because you'll just look around for the people who look really sickly or have like a lot of liver spots because they're exposed to all of these extremely toxic chemicals all the time and have developed an immunity essentially to a lot of them. So biologists come with a little bit of immunity to poisons just by virtue of being a biologist and having like an alchemist. That's right, like an alchemist. I don't want to talk too much about Pipit's specific background or anything because I want to let Chelsea really release that. But yeah, I'm really excited. Pipit's great. There's Pawn. This is Urban Bohemian's character. A little close up. Beautiful. Look at this. This collar here too. Like the outfit looks very, very good. Oh, the Tisk. Finally, we get to talk about the Tisk. I love the Tisk. The Tisk are the only other dominant mammal species. Well, they're the dominant mammal species in Issliss. The Tisk control a region known as the Tarkotlis Forest. It's a huge, like, mega forest in the center of the continent. And given that they're mammals, they're extremely social and also highly religious, extremely traditional, very religious, and have developed thousands of years worth of religion. They also invented the calendar system, so there is a unique calendar system that actually functions, which is wild. So there's a real calendar system in the game, and the Tisk were the ones who invented it.
And yes, they are absolutely Batwolves.
Yeah, Batwolves. They're really long, really spindly. If you've ever seen like a weasel out in the wild, imagine something kind of like that, like a massive carnivorous, obligate carnivore that's way bigger than you, and they can fly a little bit. There are a couple varieties of Tisk. The most common one is the greater Tisk, this one here on the right. They're a little too big to really fly very well, so they can't really fly as well as like the aerial Tisk might. These are pretty rare up here. There's also a flightless Tisk. The social strata of the Tisk is pretty complex, but essentially the way that Tisk mostly live is in trees and tops of mountains and places that are really difficult to access if you don't have at least some use of your wings, of your membrane. So flightless Tisk are usually seen as sub Tisk.
They're the sad Tisk.
Yeah, sad, angry Tisk. The forest floor of the Tarkotlis is a really interesting place, and that's where the flightless Tisk kind of reigns supreme, is down on the forest floor. Are we tasty to them? The Tisk have not just only recently outlawed human sacrifice, they also invented a lot of really interesting ways to prepare humans. A major part of the Tisk diet for the last 1,000 years has been human, so there's just a lot of recipes out there. One of the ways that the Tisk became so good at mass manufacturing devices, apparatuses, was from a project that the Tisk put into place like 100 years after the humans invaded, where they started distributing to more rural Tisk perfectly sized barbecues, basically, for human captives. So the Tisk use.
I love that, no matter how horrifying it is.
You can still find some of these old timey barbecues out there. It's kind of like equivalent to, I don't know if you've ever seen like one of those old timey like Wild West stoves where you put like coals on top to like heat the food. You know, it's like super inaccurate, but it was like mass produced, so you could still find them everywhere. Yeah, it's kind of like that. The Tisk are also not only are they hyper religious and hyper social, they also have a mind for technology. There's rumors of Tisk dirigibles out there in the Tarkotlis, and the Tisk suffered probably the greatest during the human invasion, given that their territory was the one that formed like the beachhead for humans to invade. There was a cataclysmic event called the Radiance that basically obliterated the northeast section of Issliss. And to get close to the Radiance is to know madness. So even people, humans or Tisk or any sentient creature that makes its way near to the boundary of the Radiance can feel like a psychic tug, like a pull The Tisk believe that that you only feel this pull if you have sin. If you have sinned. So none of the Tisk want to admit that they feel it.
How convenient. And correct me if I'm wrong, the place where the Radiance happened, that's... I'm not spoiling anything because I think it was in our intro. That's where the humans landed, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, the Issliss was a massive settlement. It was the seat of power for the Tisk, the capital of their religion. When humans invaded, they took over Issliss, sacked it, and drove the Tisk back, burned it all. During the Radiance, the entire northeast section of Issliss was obliterated. And so the humans who were left fighting wars further inland were stranded. And the Tisk had to come up with a new capital. So in a further module, you'll be able to go to New Issliss. Another feature of Tisk governance is that there is actually, like how the Kasat have the royal plate, the Tisk have a wide variety of small squabbling religious kingdoms called the Holy Realms. And they sometimes will work together, but most of the time they are just locked in like perpetual fighting, sometimes really bloody fighting over religious differences. So the design philosophy that we had for the different factions was that we wanted players to rise against a tyrannical government for the Kasat, and we wanted players to rise against an oppressive theocracy for the Tisk. And we're gonna do some really cool stuff with little assertions. But I don't want to spoil anything because you're just a lowly human. You don't need to know anything about the Lacertians. So yeah, the Holy Realms are a terrifying place. There are a lot of different ways to die in the Holy Realms. There's also fun little fact. There's also a human reserve, just like a cordoned off area of the Tarkatlas, where the Tisk have allocated a certain amount of resources to just like propping up a tiny little human village, so that they can skim off the top of the excess humans created there. There is a big event that happened about 30 years ago in contemporary Issliss where the Tisk outlawed human sacrifice. So no longer can you outright sacrifice humans legally. There are still a lot of Tisk out there, especially rural Tisk, who see no problem with trying to please the gods a little bit. Maybe things weren't going their way. Maybe they stubbed their toe, and it's because the gods are angry that they didn't sacrifice enough humans. So, I mean, they got that barbecue.
And just because it's illegal for the Tisk doesn't mean it's illegal for anyone else.
That's right. It's not fashionable. The Kasat see it as not fashionable to eat the humans anymore because they like to think that they see their usefulness elsewhere. But the Tisk are some of them are pretty divided about that.
Yep, it's I appreciate that they outlawed sacrifice, but really all that means is that the theory is in place, but in practice, plenty of humans die, just not for sacrificial reasons.
Yeah, totally. Aerial Tisk here. Yeah, neat. We talked about the first Aeon. The second Aeon saw the rise of a feudal system in the west and the first great Tisk diaspora in the north. This was when the Holy Realm started to fracture. Raids, territorial squabbles, and hunts are a staple of the Aeon, along with the discovery of a subterranean substance known as air crystal, capable of such strong vibration as to sear flesh and bond it together. Extremely rare, volatile, and dangerous. Information regarding air crystal is sparse at best. The third Aeon saw the failed invasion of Issliss by man. Several bloody years of conquest ended in catastrophe as the northeastern side of the entire continent of Issliss was corrupted in a horrible cataclysm of extraordinary proportions called the Radiance. Battered, broken, and blamed for the unholy destruction of the northeast shore, the human threat subsided and captives were integrated into the workforce across the continent. At first being sent into mines for various minerals, stones, and precious air crystal, human subjects uncovered a dire threat, a type of living plague known only in legends as the Felnir. Corrupted and quickly spreading, the Kassat laid a brutal campaign of firebombing every human settlement suspected of incubating this fabled disease. These ruthless measures set off a series of human rebellions, culminating in yet another human defeat. The remaining human population, still reeling from the Felnir plague and the bombing campaign, accepted fate. Mega projects and major improvements to infrastructure marked the fourth Aeon. This Aeon saw the invention of underground sewers, massive aqueducts, and the construction of the first Queen Song, the beginning of the great spires of the plate. The Queen Song are a massive spire across a massive... Oh my god. The Queen Song are an interconnected series of high-tension, long-range communication filament strung between massive spires across the west, enabling virtually instant long-range communication. The holy realms of the Tisk likewise constructed vast mega-churches in their region for their growing pantheon of gods. Contemporary Issliss takes place in the fourth Aeon, approximately 30 years after the abolition of human sacrifice by the Tisk. One of the features of an Aeon in Issliss is the ascension of a new queen. So you can think of like every Aeon as like a new queen has come to power, and they live for a few hundred years. If there is anything like a god in Issliss, this is like one example of a living god, basically. Massive, long living, disgusting. Terrifying. So each Aeon is basically like a new queen has ascended the throne. I'm so sorry that we dropped out a little bit. My name is Nicotine. I'm Veronica Ripley. I am the creator of Issliss, and I'm really happy that I got to spend today talking about Issliss with you. Before I go, I want to remind everyone that the Kickstarter is live. We have a Kickstarter for the core rulebook, which is basically mostly written. We just want the ability to produce a physical copy of it, along with some extra goodies. And so to that end, we're raising money for a print of this book. If you would like to have either the digital core rulebook or a physical core rulebook and a bunch of other really neat stuff, then head over to the Kickstarter. You can !Kickstarter in chat to get the link. You can also find it on Kickstarter. We have we just launched like 14 hours ago, and we're doing really well. So you can follow the project, you can back it. You can also take a look at all of the reward tiers we have here, and you can see some of the really pretty art that Colt did for the show and the book. It's outstanding. We want to do stretch goals too for the dice and for like physical currency tokens. It's gonna be great. So check out the Kickstarter and be sure to follow here on Twitch every Friday at noon Pacific. We are going to be doing Issliss Season 1. Next week will be our first like real roleplay session. So you'll get to see like an actual example of this game being played, which is really cool. Again, big thank you to the cast for being here. Big thank you to Matt, the writer for the campaign, and big thank you to everyone out there for sponsoring the Kickstarter, for subscribing to the stream, and for hanging out and being great. We'll see everybody again next week for Issliss Season 1. Good night, everyone. Be sure to tune in every Friday at noon Pacific to twitch.tv/FableScraps for live episodes of Issliss Season 1. You can find our previous episodes on YouTube and on Twitch, and you can find our podcast anywhere podcasts are listened to. We're live on Kickstarter, so head over there if you want to pick up some cool physical goodies. along with some really cool limited edition numbered maps and posters and books. It's really exciting. So thank you. See you again next time.